Green Party of Canada leader Elizabeth May appears to be using a different strategy for the upcoming election. Now, back in 2015, Elizabeth May was solely focused on defeating Stephen Harper. So here's a headline from CBC News back then. Elizabeth May willing to mediate coalition to topple Stephen Harper. May says she would call Governor General to give opposition time to form a coalition. So this was right in the middle of the election. Elizabeth May saying that she would help form a coalition to topple Stephen Harper's conservative government. Now, compare that to this story out of HuffPost. Elizabeth May could back minority government of any party with serious climate plan. The Green Party leader says she's feeling a groundswell of support. Federally, May says she could support a minority government of any party, but only if that party is serious about acting to stop climate change. We will negotiate with anyone. We will talk to everyone, but we won't compromise on climate action, she says. Now, on the face, this sounds positive. I mean, here you have an open-minded party leader saying that I'm willing to work with any party as long as they're strong on climate change. Here's the problem. It's incredibly naive. In fact, May thinks that influence could even get the Conservatives to drop their dyed-in-the-wool opposition to carbon taxes if it means the difference for them between governing or spending more time in opposition. Quote, people change their minds when they see the dynamic of a way a parliament is assembled and maybe think killing carbon taxes isn't such a good idea if the only way I get to be prime minister is by keeping them, May says. Now, look, strategically, it sounds like maybe it could work, right? Andrew Scheer and your Conservatives, you can't form government unless you support the carbon tax. There's a few problems here. One, it's very unlikely the Greens will be in a position where they hold the balance of power and actually be able to facilitate that kind of agreement. Number two, killing the carbon tax is one of Andrew Scheer's main objectives. I mean, when you look at his energy page, it is the number one on the entire list of what the Conservatives plan to do when it comes to energy, kill the carbon tax. So it's almost like going to Donald Trump and saying, I want to work with you on immigration, and thinking that Donald Trump is actually going to work with you on immigration. I mean, just the idea of it is incredibly unlikely when a big chunk of their platform is based on this idea that Justin Trudeau doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to climate change, which is true, but from a left perspective, it's true. It's not true from a right-wing perspective. In terms of a right-wing perspective, I mean, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are essentially running a conservative government. It's just not as conservative as Andrew Scheer would like. But the other problem here is, let's say the Conservatives are open to compromising on this. What would the Greens have to compromise if it meant saving the carbon tax? So if we look at some recent moves from Greens around the country, I mean, they have not been strong on the issue of labor. So in December, Ontario Green Party leader Mike Schreiner voted in favor of Bill 67, where he was siding with Doug Ford's Conservative government in denying OPG workers the right to strike. Meanwhile, the Ontario NDP was united against this bill. Now, it's not just the Ontario Greens that have shown some signs of being anti-labor. It's also the BC Greens who have done this as well. So the BC Greens right now hold the balance of power in supporting a minority government, a minority NDP government in BC. Now, the BC Greens leader, Andrew Weaver, sided with employers just this year and actually won. So this from the Vancouver Sun. Weaver gets his way on union ballots, approves labor code amendments. No takers. For months, Weaver had been saying the Greens supported the secret ballot over the NDP's preference for workers signaling their support for joining a union by openly signing cards. The latter is favored by organized labor because, being not in the least secret, it is easier to apply peer pressure to get workers to join a union. Weaver sides with employers in preferring the secret ballot, believing it provides more protection for individual choice. So this is now the second time that a Green Party has made a move against labor rights. or at least against the best interest of unions. So it appears this is becoming a pattern. Now, if you have, look, these provincial Green parties don't necessarily represent the federal party, but what Elizabeth May is saying now about being open to working with any party, and also her recent hiring of Warren Kinsella, who is the self-described Prince of Darkness of Canadian politics, which I went into a little more depth on the Michael Brooks show, and you could read about, Warren Kinsella pretty much anywhere. But this is a guy who donated to Doug Ford, Ontario Conservative Premier Doug Ford, donated over $1,000 to him in March. This is after a lot of the anti-labor moves that Doug Ford already made. I mean, Warren Kinsella is also the guy that encouraged Elizabeth May to quit the leadership of the Green Party a couple of years ago when the party voted to support BDS. I mean, with advisors like Warren Kinsella, what would the Greens be willing to compromise on in a potential scenario where the Conservative government needs their support? And in order to have that support, they want them to uphold the carbon tax. But in exchange for that, what do they have to give in when it comes to labor rights as one issue? And it appears, look, that they're actually fighting against labor by themselves already in other provinces. So it wouldn't even necessarily be a capitulation for the Green Party. It wouldn't really be them giving in if there was already a pattern of them siding with employers over unions. So, look, as a former Green Party candidate from 2015, I don't like these moves. I don't like what Elizabeth May is saying. I don't like the hiring of Warren Kinsella. I don't like what Andrew Weaver has done, or at least done in that situation in BC, and I don't like Mike Schreiner's vote on the bill in Ontario. All of this adds up to a party that may be focused on the climate, but at what cost?